Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. And welcome. Most of you probably know me by now. I'm Chris Cecil, the President and CEO of Southern California Grant Makers. Well, I'm thrilled to see all of you here. We have an extraordinary day ahead of you. And thanks to all of you, we have over 500 people attending this event, and it's our largest annual conference and largest SCG event ever. So to kick us off, we wanted to start today just a little differently. After all, in this world of ours, we grapple with some of society's most daunting challenges. And while we have a deep passion for what we do, we are often met by obstacles and competing demands, which can at times distract us and cause us to lose our focus or our momentum. Sometimes it feels like we're never going to reach our goals. So earlier this year, I had the unique opportunity of listening to a presentation at a leadership conference by international speaker and coach Kute Blackson. His powerful remarks really resonated with the room, captivated the room, and certainly helped me reconnect to the larger value and purpose of the work I do. And I just wanted to share this experience with all of you. So before we take on this little small task called closing the opportunity gap, Kute is here to energize us and help us reflect on our deepest commitments and passion for the work and we do, and most of all, keep us in touch with why we came into this world in the first place. Because we're in a world where we can have an amazing impact in so many ways, each and every day. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Kute Blackson.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Just turn to someone next to you and just say good morning. Turn to someone on the other side, say good morning. Wow. First and foremost, I just want to say what as I feel the room, as I have had the opportunity to spend a few minutes mingling around and feeling the space in the room at this amazing event. Isn't this pretty amazing? As I've been privileged to just be here, I just want you to know that I've just felt a certain level of heartfulness. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. A certain level of heart, a certain level of compassion, a certain level of love. As I feel the room, I can feel, and I wasn't expecting to feel it at this level, but I really can feel the depth of your commitment to making a difference, the depth of your commitment to being of service. And I just want to say what a privilege, what an honor, how humbled I am to be in a room of such amazing leaders who are up to truly having an impact on the lives of humanity. So thank you for your invitation. You know, I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana. My mother's Japanese. I grew up in London. Now I live in Los Angeles. I never know where I'm from. And my father, I grew up in the field of being of service. My mother and father, my father was somewhat of a Dalai Lama figure in Ghana. I grew up, he had 300 churches, built 4 schools for thousands of people, built libraries, built hospitals. And our entire life was really about being of service. And as I feel the room, I feel your lives dedicated to service. And I have a sense, I have an inkling, a sense and a knowing of really what it takes to be of service. There is a certain level of sacrifice, yes? There is a certain level of devotion and dedication, blood, sweat, tears, prayers, energy that each of you, and care that each of you put into your work, yes? Who would agree? That your communities, that your team, that those you serve may never know, may never feel, may never appreciate. There's folks that you serve that will never really know the level at which you have given yourselves. Does anyone know what I mean? So I just felt moved as I was mingling around this morning just to thank you. To thank each and every one of you for saying yes, to having the courage to say yes to the calling. And I believe that if you're in this room something has called you to say yes to the calling, to being of service, to the mission that you're on. Because I feel if you're sitting here, that it's not just you that have chosen to do what you're doing, but perhaps the vision that you're working on has chosen you, because you are the perfect person. The perfect person based on your life, based on your experience, based on everything that you've been through to do the work that you're doing. So I want to thank you for saying yes, because not everyone does. And I also just felt moved as I was hearing some of the stories and hearing some of the work that you do, to say thank you on behalf of, it was almost like as I was sitting here, I could feel the lives that you have all directly or indirectly touched and had an impact on. The communities, the children. So I just felt moved to say thank you on behalf of every single soul that you have touched. Because if you didn't do what you are doing, can you imagine that for a moment? If you didn't do what you are doing, the world would be profoundly different. Some of you might wonder, am I really making a difference? Am I really having an impact? Has anyone ever wondered that? Is my work really, I know I have. Is my work really, really making a difference? If you weren't doing what you're doing, the world would be profoundly different. You know, it's often said that when a butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the planet, it can literally affect the other side of the planet, an ecosystem. So I want you, just as you start the day, to imagine for a moment and remember, why did you get into this game? Do you remember that moment when you said yes to the calling? Who remembers that moment? When you felt an inkling, you felt something in your heart that was pulling you to be of service. Who remembers that moment? Maybe it was a little scary, yes? But you felt something. So I want you just to sit with today as you go into your day. Why did I get into this game? Why am I in this field right now? And why am I going to continue in this field? And I want you just to imagine for a moment, just imagine the lives, the men, the women, the children, the lives that you have touched, and perhaps what their souls would say to you right now, what they would say to you in response to the work you've done. Do you feel what I'm saying? Because sometimes I think it's easy to look at where we are now and how far we have to go. This is where I am, and here's the gap, and this is how much further we have to go. But I think if you can also turn around for a moment and look back at how far you have come, personally, as a foundation, as an organization, and look back at this is where we are now, this is how far we've come, and to actually take a moment today to let yourselves feel the appreciation and the celebration for how far you've come, and allow that to inspire you forward. You know, I ask myself the question many times, has anyone been to India? It's a crazy place. It's an amazing place. I've been to India 24 times. And a man really impacted me in India when it came to truly being of service. He was, at the time, an 80-year-old man. I'd heard of him because he was a former disciple of Gandhi, the last living disciple of Gandhi. He had dedicated his life to being of service to humanity for 50 to 60 years, had 2 pairs of clothes, built the largest eye camp in the world, built 300 schools. People like Marlon Brando and Martin Luther King came to sit with him to learn about what is it to truly be of service. And I went to him one day, and I spent months sitting at his feet because I figured maybe this man has something to teach me. And I had visions of making an impact, visions of changing the world, visions in my heart. And he said, come and be with the children. He takes kids off of the streets. He takes kids who are abandoned and teaches them the ways of Gandhi and nonviolence. And for 2 weeks, I lasted about 2 weeks. In about 2 weeks, I was ready to give up. Has anyone ever felt that way? Like, I'm about to give up. I don't know if I can. Who's felt that way? And after about 2 weeks of trying to be of service, I remember feeling so, frustrated, because he would take these kids who we found in trash heaps that were abandoned. He works in the poorest state in India called Bihar. The unemployment rate is like 90%. The illiteracy rate is 90-some%. One of the most dangerous states in India currently today. And he takes these kids who can barely speak and they've been abandoned, and he teaches them and he trains them with such love. And after about 2 weeks of being with these children that weren't responding, being with these kids that didn't see, I was loving them, I was giving to them, I was serving them, or so I thought. And I was about to give up. And I said, Dwarkaji, I'm going to go meditate by the temple down the street. I'm going to meditate by the temple where there's a statue of the Buddha and maybe get some sense of enlightenment. And he looked at me, this man who has dedicated his entire life to being of service, and it changed my life 15 years ago. And he looked at me quite simply, with such compassion. When someone looks at you with non-judgment, a man who has lived what it is to truly serve humanity with every ounce of his being. And he looked me straight in the eyes and he said, it's beautiful to go meditate by the statue of the Buddha. But he said, right in front of you, right here, right now, in this simple school, are living Buddhas, just waiting to be loved. And it reminded me in that moment that sometimes the opportunity to serve is right in front of us. Sometimes the opportunity to serve is not out there, but in our families and those around us. And just the privilege to serve one person is huge. He created a program years ago that was famous called Food for Work. Marlon Brando heard about it, came to find out about it, and he refused to give the poor people of Bihar food because he felt as though just to give them food would not truly empower them. He said, if you work 2 hours a day, we'll give you food. He was all about truly empowering people. And I'll never forget, about 2 years ago, I went back to Bihar to see my friend Dwarkaji, who was about 90-some years old at this time, still serving, still making a difference. And I saw this child, this beautiful girl. She must have been 18, 17, in that zone, 19, and she tapped me on the shoulder, and in a beautiful Indian accent, she simply said to me, Kute, do you remember me? And I said, I don't. She said, you were here 12, 13 years ago, and you spent 3 months here just being with us, loving us, inspiring us. And because of you, because of some of the things you said, because of some of the things that you shared, because of some of the things I remember of what you said to us while you were here, I was so inspired that I went to university. And I've totally transformed my life completely. This was a girl, I remember her name was Pavitra, and this was a girl who was put on Dwarkaji's doorstep, wrapped in a newspaper at the age of 3 months. And here she was, going to university, making a difference. Sometimes I feel the difference you will make. You may not see the impact in your lifetime. You may not see the impact in the moment. You might. But sometimes the investment you make in the work you're doing, I believe you will see decades later, years later, and perhaps just because you may not see the impact of your work immediately right now in this moment doesn't mean it's not a success. So I'm just here today to ask you a couple of questions. Why did you get into this field? Why? What was that original impulse? Because I believe, as I feel the room, the original impulse on some level that moved you to get into this field was love. And as you dive into the data and as you dive into the business of fundraising and logistics and structuring a foundation, I invite you to remember why you got into this field. And let that inspire you each day. And why will you stay in this field? I believe that we can't all change the entire planet, but we can all do our part. That perhaps life is like an orchestra and we're all playing our instruments and playing our part to impact humanity, because as I've had the opportunity to travel to over 50 countries around the world, speaking, teaching, learning, serving, I just feel like life is inextricably interconnected. We are all inextricably interconnected with each other. And every part of life is interconnected. That nothing happens as an isolated event. The sun shines light. The plants turn that light into oxygen. We breathe in this oxygen. We are nourished. Microorganisms clean the water. We drink this water. We are nourished. I was reading the other day that mangrove forests and coral reefs lessen the impact of tsunamis. What if they didn't do their part? I want to thank you all for doing your part. You may not be able to shift the entire planet, but you can do your part. Your part. You know, I feel as though I was reading that there's 1.7 million scientifically identified species on the planet, 30 million unidentified species. But due to the way we are living as a humanity, 40,000 species are going extinct every single year. That as I look at the world and as I've had the privilege to travel the world, the opportunity to work with everyone from billionaires, celebrities, athletes, as a coach, as a facilitator, from India to Japan to South Africa to London, there's been a lot of talk about how there's been a crisis on the planet. Has anyone heard of that? The real estate market, the financial markets, the crisis that's happening. You know, in Chinese, the word crisis is also the same word as opportunity. Opportunity, that there is an opportunity that as things fall apart, old structures, old ways of doing things, that I believe that something more is seeking to happen on our planet today, a new way of thinking. That we can no longer rely on the past to necessarily create the future, as the future is being created so quickly. So I'm here to ask you just 4 simple questions before I leave today. Because I believe that the next level of perhaps where you are going personally, professionally, as an organization, as a human being, does not simply lie in the known, in where you've been comfortable, but lies outside of your comfort zone in the unknown. And sometimes we get, having worked with a lot of successful people, I've seen that sometimes we get a little comfortable where we're at. Has anyone ever felt that? We get a little comfortable doing the same thing because it works. Doing the same thing because of tradition. Doing the same thing because that's how it's always been done. Doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's interesting to look at what's happened to the music industry. Gone. Has anyone been to Blockbuster lately? Anyone? Anyone been to Netflix? Who went on to Netflix in the last week? Blockbuster? Remember Kodak? Gone. Anyone Instagram? It's happening. We can no longer look to the past as the future is constantly changing so rapidly with nanotechnology and 3D printing and so many technological advances. That if we as leaders are not innovating and growing and evolving, we will be left behind. So I feel as though the next evolution of where you are going is not in the past. And what I've seen is sometimes we get comfortable doing the same thing. So I'm just here to ask you, where have you become comfortable perhaps in your life, in your relationships, in the way that you have been running your organization? Where have you become comfortable and what is it costing you? There's a trap I've seen of success. That when we do things a certain way and it works, we keep doing it, but sometimes doing that thing actually inhibits and limits the next level of our growth. Does anyone know what I'm saying? The next level of what it really is that is seeking to happen through us. Has anyone felt an inkling of something? You felt this next evolution of what you're meant to do, but it terrified you? Anyone? We need to make this initiative. We know this is the way we need, but it's like, how do we do that? There's no model for that. It's never been done. Where are you actually right now trapped by the way you've been doing things in the past? So there's 4 questions I would like you to think about today. These are 4 questions I think about in my life quite often. The first question is, how is actually doing, I'll ask it this way, what are you doing that is working? What are you doing that's working? Doing more of it, and how doing more of it is actually limiting the next level of your growth and evolution as a human being, as an organization. So what are you doing that's working? Because often we look at what's not working and how do I optimize it? How do I improve it? How do I shift it? Yes? I'm asking, what is it that you're doing that's working? It's working. But doing more of it is actually limiting the next level of your growth and evolution. It's getting in the way. It's getting in the way. The second question I'll ask is, what have you not yet done? Individually, as an organization, what have you not yet done that actually you know is where you need to go as the next edge of your growth, your life, your business, your organization, but it scares you? Where when you think about that, it actually scares you a little bit. The third question is simply, if we just put the model aside, the money aside, the how aside, because sometimes we get so caught up in that it limits our ability to generate new ideas, exponential ideas, disruptive ideas that can completely shift a model and a way of doing things. So if you just put money aside, the model aside, what do you feel is needed? What do you feel is really needed? What would you do? The last question is, if you were to start all over again, whether it was your life, whether it's the relationship you're in, whether it's the way you run your foundation, if you were to start from zero, from scratch, all over again, would you be doing it the way that you're currently doing it today? And to have the willingness to be radically honest. And to tell the truth to ourselves, I believe, is one of the fundamental foundations of a successful leader. If you were to start all over again, would you be doing what you're doing? Would you be doing it how you're doing it today? Would you be running it how you're doing it today? Or if not, what would you and how would you be doing it instead? So I feel as though the next level of your growth, if you're willing to be honest with some of those questions. Is everyone with me on the questions? If you're willing to be radically honest with those questions, because sometimes we're a little scared to be that honest. Sometimes we're afraid to let go of what we know because of, oh my goodness, what will happen? But I believe if for a moment we're willing to go where it's scary. I'm actually inviting each of you today to go where it's scary. to go where it's scary. So as you go through the day, as you sit with your lives, as you sit with your foundations, and why scary? I don't mean like jumping off a building. But where is scary for the next level of the edge of your growth? Where is scary for you? And I'm inviting you to go there. Because that's where you will tap into things that you didn't even know was actually available to you. And find resources in your organization and within yourself that actually was always there before. Where is scary for you? You know, we worship superheroes that fly and jump and kick and do all sorts of amazing things, but I believe that the real heroes are each of you in this room who have said yes to the call to do a great work. And I believe that to have the opportunity to serve, to have the opportunity to be of service to another human being is a privilege. So for me, each of you are heroes. And based on the world we live in and the crisis that we've been going through as a humanity, never before has the world been in need of you. Never before has the world been in need of a group of visionary leaders committed to making a difference in the evolution of humanity as right now. So I believe that you have been born for a purpose, a reason, and at the perfect time. You are true heroes. Thank you, everyone. Go where it's scary. Thank you.